As we know, Daishinkan is a kind of guardian, almost a father figure for Zeno, who has existed for thousands and thousands of years, even before Ze created the universes and everything else. As we know this type of affection in terms of paternal feelings, it would actually be something much more sentimental. So hypothetically speaking, let's start the theories. Would Daishinkan cry to hear Zeno die? Hypothetically speaking, Zeno could actually end up dying at some point. Let's assume that his power is so powerful, but so powerful, and during all this time, he hasn't released as much of his power as he can use. And as we know, it's very capable of his body ending up overloading itself more than necessary. Perhaps his ruin is his own power, but we don't know exactly if that can happen. But it is quite capable. Guys, if you're enjoying the video, leave a like and help the channel grow even more. Let's help the channel. And now let's go back to the video. And the chances of the Daishinkan unfortunately crying are much greater than them simply not to care. Precisely because of the fact that, as explained previously, Daishinkan is Zeno's guardian. So it is quite possible for Zeno and Daishinkan to have this greater proximity. They understand each other. Zeno understands the Daishinkan, and they have a fatherly bond. So it would be kind of obvious that the Daishinkan would certainly be quite depressed if Zeno were to die by his own power. If he ends up succumbing by his own power, this would of course be a significant loss for the entire universe, even just for the Daishinkan. Thus, yes, Daishinkan may end up feeling something sad. And as we know, he has a very strong attachment to Zeno. So for Daishinkan, it would be much more difficult for this loss to go unnoticed. Can Zeno die? Zeno is the absolute creator of all the things we know. Both Zeno and Daishinkan himself are creators of several things, and have a power that ends up going far beyond what we can imagine. If everything that has been presented so far in Dragon Ball, it's something on an even greater level than we've ever seen. Imagine Zeno's power, even without showing much. We know that Zeno is the most powerful, even more than all the Toreros that are fighting at the moment. For example, Moro himself would be capable of destroying a galaxy if he exploded, collapsed, and Zeno can do much more than that, just that we cannot see. It would be a completely different level of power than what we are used to, even much higher than what we have already seen. But the question that remains unanswered is, would Zeno be capable of dying? We know he is the most powerful, but we don't know exactly if he is immortal. But hypothetically speaking, it would be very likely that Zeno would end up overloading himself and succumbing to his own power, and thus being defeated. As we know, Zeno himself is someone quite strong, stronger than any standard presented in Dragon Ball. So, due to this factor, we take two hypotheses. If Zeno is so powerful, he could be immortal. After all, he was even present in the creation of the universes. There is no way someone like that could not be immortal. However, we also enter the second hypothesis, which is, if ZENO-SAMA ends up dying, it wouldn't be due to natural causes, or because an enemy killed him. It would be through his own power, simple as that. If we were to analyze these very strong characters from series, films, and even animes, they are quite powerful, precisely because of the fact that their own power is their greatness. But if we were to analyze, there are clear examples. For example, the Goku's Kaioken is a very powerful technique, but it can kill the user. The power causes the user to die, precisely because there is so much power that the body cannot handle it. When we stop and start to analyze Zeno's powers, we realize that they are on a completely different level than the Dragon Ball universe, from everything that has been shown and presented to us so far. And as we know, creatures with very strong powers normally have very specific conditions to be defeated. For example, Zeno can die if he overloads his body too much, as we know if he releases a large amount of energy his body is capable of. Hold on, so it's quite possible to say that Zeno is limiting himself for a long time. And when he has this burst of energy, he would end up collapsing and thus dying. Of course, it's a hypothesis, but it's quite capable of actually appearing and being that way. Although it is quite difficult to find someone who would make Zeno use all his power. And if he actually uses all his power and goes beyond what has already been presented, he could succumb, collapse, and end up dying. It would be interesting if this actually happened. Hypothetically speaking, it would be quite interesting if the angels returned and in a desperate act they merged. As we know, Dragon Ball's angels are another class of power. They train the gods of destruction and are one of the greatest powers in terms of powers, and all angels dominate Ultra Instinct, We know that they are quite powerful, but what if them to merge and create a new absolute god? A new Zeno? Even more powerful than the old one? It would be something quite interesting for us to imagine, that if they combined their own powers, they would perhaps give a level of power similar to that of Zeno, or even higher. In this way, they would sacrifice themselves, thus creating an even stronger being. It would be a sacrifice that would be worth it, and we really need to think about this hypothesis, because it could happen. As we know, Zeno is absurdly powerful, and if he were defeated, he would be a giant rock to tophy the universes, so the balance could be broken. As we know, each universe has an angel, and if an angel does something wrong, those who must take drastic measures are Daishinkan or another angel, and in the worst case, even Zeno himself. So yes, it is quite possible for Zeno to unfortunately be defeated, and in this way, he would have to be created from the fusion of several angels. In this way, I have a perfect, supreme and absolute being like Zeno. And of course it is just a theory, but it would be really cool if it actually came to fruition. Did Daishinkan cry when Zeno destroyed the 6 universes? The angels are the Daishinkan's children, so it would be quite explicit that he would definitely feel upset, precisely because of the fact that his children would probably die. We mean, if really the Daishinkan who has this whole fatherhood side with everyone he has ever taken. According to this, it would even be quite logical to say that the Daishinkan would feel the weight of the deaths of its children. After all, every parent who truly values their child's safety would be at least upset if their child got hurt. In Daishinkan's case, his children would be erased, so technically he would really feel the weight of his own children's death, and he could do a lot, precisely because he couldn't contradict Zeno, who in this case, Daishinkan is just an advisor. He just helps Zeno make some decision. But we know that he wouldn't stand by if his children's lives were really in danger. So let's say that he could have found some way to help so as not to lose his own children. Let's say that maybe yes, maybe not. But it is undeniable how upset he would be with this factor presented to us. So it's quite possible that he actually did something to spare the angels' lives or even help them, while they wouldn't be able to do much to save themselves. In this way, it is quite possible that the Daishinkan helped the angels come out alive from a future existential erasure. And we also need to know what exactly the angels would do after their universes were completely annihilated, because if we stop to analyze, they wouldn't simply be at the mercy of luck. They would probably have somewhere to go, and that way they could spend more time wandering or living peacefully somewhere. After all, this time they wouldn't have a universe to protect, obviously, so even for them to enjoy it, and even take a vacation, in quotes, would be something quite normal and acceptable, I would say. Guys, the video will end here. Did you like the themes? Comment. I would love to know the opinion of other Dragon Ball fans about what could happen in the work. Remember, I left your like and subscription. This helps the channel a lot. Oh, and also it would be wonderful if you shared this video with your friends, you know? Those friends who are passionate about Dragon Ball. Anyway, I count on your support and see you later.